Welcome back to episode 4, where we're discussing the book Winning from Jack Welch. So we're going to jump into chapter number 3, where we're going to talk about competition and crisis management. Now, very interesting in Winning, you get to delve a little bit into Jack's thought process when it comes to how he made those, again, hard decisions for GE and how he scaled it from, that initial 2-digit billion figure to a 3-digit billion figure company. And I mean, he goes very deeply into things like merger and acquisitions, and also how he essentially, not himself alone, but how his team and how his structure is essentially trained to look at crisis management through a different lens. So Vlad, I was sort of wondering, for you, when we talk about your experience within a GE company, how did you feel that sort of that marketing edge, that competition, how they stood out, and then, how you manage the frameworks necessary to do crisis management within the company for you as a leader?
So competition is everything about the competitive edge. As I already mentioned, you need to have that competitive advantage or that edge to be able to position yourself. When Genpact emerged in the late 90s, the competitive advantage was the GE heritage, obviously, and the Lean Six Sigma principle. Because we, as a company at the time, we sold Lean Six Sigma embedded in the operations, in the process improvement.
Mhm.
We sold the vision that through applied Lean Six Sigma methodology and science, we are able to eliminate waste and make processes more efficient and companies more profitable by saving them cost on different processes. That was the competitive advantage, and that was far beyond. So when the outsourcing industry started, the competitive advantage was the lower workforce cost in remote locations like India, right? The first competitive advantage was the staff cost. We do the same work for you remotely with lesser cost. Then Genpact came with Lean Six Sigma, and then also others followed. Then we came to transformation, design thinking, other process improvement methodologies, and that was even far before we even went into RPA and then later on AI and this kind of things, right? So competitive advantage is what is your value proposition? What are you proposing to your customer? Are you proposing solutions? Are you proposing improving customer experience? Are you proposing an improved service? What is the value which they get? I think that's the competitive advantage. And the question which we should always ask ourselves, and I quote from Jack, what can we do better than anyone else? That's actually the differentiator.
Goodness. Yeah. I mean, standing out from the crowd, sometimes a very, very hard thing to do, but I mean, unique ideas is everywhere. You just need to listen for it, right?
Very true.
What do you think,
Very true.
Mady?
Absolutely. This is something that we discussed it in previous chapter as well. Ensuring that competitive advantage, having it is make the company upward and start bringing the company towards winning, which is the whole aim.
Exactly. And I mean, you need to be attaching these kind of things to a very clear initiative. This goal that you want to have within the specific market seems to be a core value that Jack has as well. I mean, what's the quote? Like, change for change's sake is just stupid and demotivating.
Exactly.
So why?
Right.
Set clear goals.
Yeah.
Like, even in the smart world, right? Simple, clear, achievable goals. That's all what it needs to be about. So that everybody can relate to the goals and everybody can understand exactly what they need to do to achieve that goal. The goal shouldn't be ambiguous. If it is ambiguous, it is not reachable, because everyone will have a different perception about what this goal means and how to achieve the goal.
So when Jack talks about this, he does talk a lot about, like, internally within the company, even with the external forces of competition. He talks a lot about these keeping strategy alive. I think the 3-step strategy playbook, where it's essentially coming up with a big aha, putting the right people on it, and then just driving that and relentlessly pursuing best practices. How do you feel that within the company, the strong strategical focus gives you that edge within a very, very interesting sort of competitive market?
So I think the competitive advantage is for a company like Genpact or for any BPO company,
Mm-hmm.
I think testing out if the competitive advantage is there is actually when you go into RFPs.
Yes.
What is your winning rate in the RFPs?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to get deals? If you don't get deals, why aren't you getting deals? What is in your proposal not working properly that is not convincing customers to choose you? Is it the pricing? Is it starts with the pricing model? Are you expensive? Is it the way you design the solution? Is it understandable for the client? What is the gain share of the contract? I mean, what is the customer getting as added value on top of just paying the monthly invoice for the service? What are you offering to the customer? Is it the right thing? Are you even offering something?
Yeah.
What differentiates you versus the competition? And I think testing out the selling strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and if you have put the right people and the right credible people in the RFP team, this is also very important. You need to have people who are able to sell that vision and convince the client. Often I saw in my own experience, RFPs fail because the team that's got the presentation in front of the stakeholders of the client were not convincing enough, were not able to transmit that selling message. That's also one example. But as a playground and as a test ground, so to say better, competing in RFPs is actually when you see how good are you performing against the competition. So if you're constantly losing against your competition or not, if you're constantly winning, then you need also ask yourself, okay, also, why have I won? Okay, you celebrate, you cheer, I won, great. I must be doing something perfect. But still ask yourself, why have you won?
Yeah. But post-match analysis.
It's about winning, yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Winning should also be analyzed.
Also, Jack was mentioning a strategy means choices. You cannot be everything to everyone. And the example that he was mentioning, it was Oberkreuz pizza, that he was mentioning the pizza was really nice and people, they really wanted to go there for the pizza. But the customer service or everything else, it was really mediocre. Sometimes they was saying whatever, but you go back there because of the quality. They said their focus was on their product. And he was mentioning on the other side of the spectrum, there was some 27 CVS pharmacy in the one neighborhood that really know people by their name, bring the things that they needed, and like having that communication with the client and their customer was the things that set them apart from the competition. And when it's come to the strategy, you need to make the choice. What do you want to be to who?
I think it's if we translate this into our modern day, let's say, business, even if we look at BBG, right? Product is very important because people need to love your product and you need to make it lovable and build this personalization for the customer, which of course not knowing all our customers by name,
Yeah.
but having like a personalized approach, like creating a customer persona, which is also part of a modern times customer experience technology or a framework, would definitely help a retailer engage with his customer, anticipate their needs, and come with better offers, and also even cross-sell, upsell additional products based on a specific profile,
Mm-hmm.
which shouldn't be missed in any of those situations. So I think same with GE. GE is still a great manufacturing company, but they wanted to make sure that the products are seamless. Customers love their products, right? And they are able to build that customer relationship that will keep the commercial relationship and the partnership vendor customer relationship for a long time.
Indeed.
All right. Going to the crisis management, Jack Welch also been through a lot of crises during his career, and he mentioned what is crisis and what should do or not do. And I really like those assumptions that he mentioned and elaborate. He make like 5 assumptions when it's come to crisis. Assuming the problem is worse than it appear is the first assumption that you must do. You should never underestimate the crisis,
Mm-hmm.
and you should take the full ownership of the crisis. Like
expect the worst,
what is
expect the worst, right?
exactly
And hope for
unknown.
the best. Expect the worst and hope for the
And
best.
hope for the best. Exactly. Like is the first one assuming the worst. The fifth one is assume your company will survive it. It means
Yes.
that hey, this is not end of the world. It's happened before and it's gonna happen again. And it's something that you want to make sure that, hey, it's something that you can get away with it. Like there is a famous quote by Andrew Grove, the chairman and CEO of previous CEO of the Intel, that say bad company are destroyed by crisis. Good companies survive the crisis and great companies are improved by them.
Yeah.
When the crisis coming, they see it as opportunity to improve.
I like the quote, but nowadays Intel is not doing quite so good. But anyway,
The benefit of hindsight is that it's always 2020, right?
yeah.
From my end, the first coach that I had, my very first career, I got the opportunity to work on Rupert Fontel. He was a very avid mountain climber. He did some very dangerous things at a very high altitude a multiple of times. But the way he would handle a crisis with the calm and stoicism of someone that I would, that's something I took out of that conversation, or the way he handled these kind of things as well. He's like, look, this is not the worst that can happen. You need to put on your big boy shoes, you need to go handle this, take accountability, do what needs to be done. And then the consequences of that, you just need to face it. I mean, this is something I learned early in my career. I just deleted like 6 months of developer work that he was working on a project when he told me that the first time. So 2 thumbs up with regards to restraint. But when Welch describes these 5 assumptions for crisis, this resonates very deeply with me, because I don't think crisis is necessarily something that you must avoid at all costs. You need to accept it as a reality. This is the price we pay for waking up every morning in our personal lives, doing business, working for a company, being in a global economy. It's a reality for us. And knowing how to deal with this reality, especially within the framework that Welch highlights here, is very refreshing for me to see that put in words. What do you think, La?
As I said, crisis management, it's about staying calm.
Yes.
About not showing the fears and the worries to your team,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely not sharing them.
Yes.
And it's about managing out, staying calm, and the wave pass. Don't take quick decisions, which are when your head is like when there is fire and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah, wait for the fire to go away, and then you can cool down and take the right decision. It's a matter of choices as well in crisis management. You can either make it worse, or and make the fire bigger, or you can extinguish the fire. Depends on which button you press, right?
Exactly.
Very true.
It's super important. And I mean, you're not going to be popular, but hopefully you learn something out of it and make things just slightly better in the end, right? Come on.
Look, I can share a few examples. Like,
Yeah. I'd love to hear it.
I remember one of I wasn't part of that, but I can imagine how that felt. One of my colleagues in Genpact, he was a transition manager, and he went with a group of junior agents to shadow and pick up the knowledge from a French customer in France for a 2 weeks shadowing session and documentation of procedures in finance and accounting, because that scope of work was about to be transferred to Genpact in Romania and be done of Romania. And he told me he reached with the junior team there. He was and with the junior team lead, he was the most senior representative and the transition manager. And it was a plant, it was a manufacturing company. In the courtyard of the manufacturing company, there were people striking and demoing as a support for their finance and accounting colleagues in the enterprise losing the job. And when the group entered the courtyard, they were started to be booed by that crowd and say, "Look, these are the guys that are going to take your job and do it out of Romania." And they were booed. So in that hostile environment, my colleague had to do the transition to pick up the knowledge, to encourage the team to still not be afraid to talk to those senior French accountants and pick up the knowledge. And I asked him, "Hey, guy, hey, dude, how did you do that?" I mean, that's because he managed it in the end. And I said, yeah, keep it calm, take pills, do whatever you think, keep calm, constantly encourage the people, talk to them, tell them, look, we are in the same boat. If you fail, I fail, we all fail, so that's fine. I mean, just do the work we are supposed to be there, be professional, act professional, don't get involved in side discussions, don't get involved by emotions from others, and that's it. just be professional, act professional, do what you came to be
Yeah. Just keep calm.
paid and do for. Yeah.
Right, right. And also being brutally honest, because like it was mentioning that assume there is no secret. Try to just be transparent what's going on. When it's crisis, always lawyer ask you to say less, but push them to say as much as possible. And he was mentioning it's like a telephone game
Yeah.
that children playing. If the first things that the first kid say and the last one that is come out, they're too much different. And it's better to just be transparent and let the news go as soon as possible, so at least they have their real version rather than escalated one, which is nothing close to the reality. Alrighty. Touch on the career management to close it up within this chapter.
I think that that's quite important because Jack was definitely really excelling at empowering and developing leaders. I think he has really got himself a very strong team around him, which he gave them responsibility. He encouraged them to take risks. And as you all know, he promoted the culture of continuous development and continuous learning.
Yeah.
Actually, not only the success of GE talks by themselves, but giving people the opportunity to pursue their ideas as we spoke earlier and come up with projects and lead initiatives has also tremendously helped GE further expand in other geographies and in other countries. And that brings me also to the point that he is actually the catalyzer, the for helping a new industry be created, the BPO industry in the late 90s.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy to think that that as a foundational lever seems to be the legacy. I would say for me, when we talk about career as it's sort of portrayed within the book, the one core topic for me that I think we need to sort of just talk about a little bit is taking ownership of your path. And I think, Vlad, you mentioned this before as well, is that you're essentially in the driver's seat. You need to figure out what is your competitive advantage, what is your edge that you as a person want to bring to the table. And then it's also that whole thing about change before you have to. And it resonates so well in today's day and age because it feels as though we're constantly, every day you open up the technology news and someone that's working in the technology industry, you're like, oh shit, I've got to redefine myself again. And it happens sort of like these days about 2 to 3 times a week, which is super, super scary. But I think it's important. Understand it's your path. You're the one walking it. You're in control. If it doesn't work for you, and I think Welch makes a very good statement here, is that try something else. Just be a little bit different. You can't wake up every day, day in, day out. You're not going to be able to keep those 4 E's and the P if this is what you want. What do you think as a final closing thought and sort of like career in general?
For me, what's important is to, as for everyone, to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, some of this evolvement comes through self-study and self-conscious and self-drive. You're your own career manager, remember? But it's not just about evolving and promoting in a higher position. It's not a hunt for higher positions, growing up the organizational structural ladder. It's about learning from new experiences and always having the possibility to do something new. This is what kept me in Genpact for almost 12 years. I got asked by a few former colleagues and friends, hey, you stayed like 12 years in the company, that's long. And I said, yes, but please look in my CV and see how many roles I had in Genpact, how many different industries and different clients and different teams I have led in operations, new transitions, existing customers. I also did 3.5 years of HR through this rotation that got extended. So I had also my downs when I was like, same shit, different day. Plateau, I'm not learning anything new. I feel like I reached a dead end. But then all of a sudden, something new came up, a new project, a new challenge, a new role. Also promotions in some cases, right? So that kept me going. That kept me alive. For me, Genpact was the best business school I have ever been attending to. It's priceless compared to any MBA because you get to live and apply those things in your daily job, and to actually live by GE's and Jack Welch's leadership and visionary thoughts and ideas. That is what kept me going, and this is what keeps me going as well. When I see a dead end, I need to change. So in the last 6 years, this is my fourth or fifth. I think fourth or fifth, I have stopped counting working place.
Yes.
And all the times I changed, okay, maybe except one or two, but all the times because there was no progress, there was no going further. So I switched.
And Jack was mentioning at the beginning of this career chapter in his book that there is a saying, they say you can only live forward and understand it backward. Same goes for your career. You need to try different things and you need to see how it really resonates with you. How do you like it? And compare it. It's like you cannot land on your dream job on the spot. It's something that you need to try different things. And it's really interesting for me, Vlad, that you say GE give you opportunity within the organization to move around, try different things, and find your passion. Not all the organization give you that platform, and you need to go through a lot of bureaucracy if you want to do these changes. In such a big organization, how GE could make it so seamless that people moving around, and what was their trick?
There was no trick. It was, I think, the already established process that I talked to you about, the Session C process, which was done every 6 months, and which was not just about discussing ratings and potentials, but based on that ratings and potentials, map those people who are ready or have the potential to go into a next role or assignment towards open opportunities. Being such a large company that was growing with new customers coming along, new projects, transitions, consultants project, outsourcing, and so on, it was quite, let's say, not easy, but it was usually likely to find new roles. Actually, those top talents were usually distributed to new clients. A new client means a new challenge, means setting up from scratch, transition, with all the challenges in beginning, with hiring, with training, with the incipient challenges of any new induction, with learning curves and performance and setting up performance management and reporting and these processes and this and that. So usually they were assigned to gave them a new project to make it successful and build it from scratch. I think that was also something amazing for me because I did myself 2 of such projects. I built like 2 teams from scratch with 2 new transitions from starting from zero, and it is a lot of headache.
Yeah.
You need to spend a lot of time and effort
Talk about a
and
challenge.
personal and passion in talking about a challenge. But the satisfaction is so sweet when you make it successful.
Come on, man.
You can't imagine the feeling with anything else.
Yeah, well,
This is really winning. This is really winning.
that's not writing an exam and passing it. That's actually winning, right?
It is.
Exactly. And it's very, very challenging. It's like some kind of thing that you start from embryonic stage yourself, which is organic growth that Jack Welch was also explaining, that managing a new 50,000 product line is way harder than running 500 million division that is in 20th years. Like when you start things and you want to kick it started is really difficult. And he was mentioning that you need to ensure to have your best people on this initiative. You ensure you put enough money up front, and they supposed to have their autonomy. If it's possible, they should have direct line to CEO in order to make things really happen.
Yeah, I think in terms of career empowerment, hey, that's absolutely amazing.
And usually new transitions with new customers, especially if they're also large customers, even if you don't report directly to the CEO, you get leadership attention every day. So you have the opportunity to thrive and to have direct exposure to your leadership, which will then give you a good business card or a good competitive advantage to show what you're made of and what you're capable of in front of your peers with whom you might be competing on. So yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
All right. We are getting towards the end of this chapter. Any closing thought, Vlad, you would like to share with us?
Nothing in particular, besides the fact that I obviously enjoyed the conversation with you guys, and it brought me real pleasure to remember some of those things which I haven't been thinking about or spoken about in quite a while. So it was like a walk in the past for 10 to 15 years ago, which is quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, Jack Welch was really, and this book particularly was really very inspirational for me. Also having the possibility to see him and Susie in person and on stage, talking about the learnings and the book itself. And then, of course, living those values by myself 1 year later when I moved into Gempact, that was really inspiring and enlightening. And these principles, I would say, are part of my leadership DNA. I followed them because they became part of me.
Mhm.
It's not like I consciously think about how would Jack would have done it. No, they became part of me, and now I'm applying them. They are part of my core leadership DNA.
Well, talk about the definition of culture, hey? I mean, being able to live that so many years later with that type of influence. Well done to
I mean,
to
I
Thomas.
grew up in that culture
I know.
from a professional perspective, from a leadership perspective. So that's my education, let's say, right? Like you grow up in a school, or you grow up in a neighborhood, or in a country, or in a family, or a culture, and you ingrain certain, you have a heritage of, competences or of principles. This is the same here with me in my professional case, right? I grew up in the shadow, or let's say in the context of GE and Jack Welch. So that's who I am now from a leadership perspective, into whom I have evolved, let's say, 15 years later.
Right. Any closing thought from your end, Milan?
For me, again, I love a good framework. And just to the listeners out there, it is refreshing to not just talk about the content of a book, but actually talk to someone about how that becomes something that you yourself can actually implement, and that there's legs to it. It's not just a book that you read, but there's so much value in actually bringing that in. And having worked with the people that Vlad mentored, I can tell you that it really delivers when it comes to team creation and actually giving people a little bit of a sense of value that they add to a company as well.
Great. That brings us to the end of this chapter. Thanks, everyone. You can see the books over here that we discussed about, and the link of the Goodreads is going to be in the description. It was really great talking to you, Vlad. We really appreciate it. It was an honor to have you within this episode.
Pleasure here as well.
Say,
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're most welcome. Thank you, everyone, to listening to our podcast. Stay tuned with more engaging conversation and in leadership, coaching, and everything with nice guests like Vlad and people that they willing to share their insight with us. Thank you very
here's
much.
to many more. Cheers, Vlad. Cheers, Mehdi.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers,
guys.
everyone else.
Goodbye.
Bye.